Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime as always, Vasili, Gianarakos, my homie. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really good, Yariv. It's been 3 games in about a week span. I feel like it's been longer for some reason, but
Yeah.
still only like a week. But a lot's happened right in the 3 games, and I think that's why we kind of feel like it's been a bit of a longer period. But after the first three, Flyers are 1-1-1 against some pretty tough competition in the league. So yeah, a lot of storylines to get into just based off the first 3 games. A lot of different things happening with the lineup as we kind of forecasted that things would not remain the same. So there's a ton to get into, man. I'm excited. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, buddy, and it's so funny, man, because I'm on X a lot, and I don't post as much as I'm on one because, and this is not to get political, there's just an insane amount of anti-Semitism that shows up on my feed right now. So I'm like, okay, this is, and I
People are
try to avoid
stupid. So
politics on X. And I'm like, I'm not following any of these people. And I'm just getting hit with screw the Jews. And I'm like, I don't want to see this. But outside of that, if you would have told me the Flyers would have started off 1-1-1 in a one of those overtime losses where they probably should have won that game and most likely should be 2-1 right now, I would have not guessed that Flyers Twitter would be in so much of a daily panic and complain session. That is the thing that I have noticed. Every single move is completely scrutinized, freaking out. Not a lot of positivity out there for where the Flyers currently stand. I want to address that during this podcast and the specific topics we talk about, but there's been a lot of contention. Do you get that sense as well, or is that just me?
yeah, I think it seems like people, or I guess fans on the internet, aren't happy with just like certain players being deployed, how they've been deployed.
Sure.
I mean, Matvei Michkov comes to mind, but also the
Yeah.
defense as well. Just like, having Emil Andrae not start with the team, they're getting called up. Then now he's kind of getting sent back, and we're going to get into all
Yeah.
that as well. So I think a lot of the lineup deployment, maybe how some of the lines have been used within the game, certain ice time deployments for certain players. But I think overarching, like if you're just looking at the first 3 games against a team like Florida, back-to-back champs, and Carolina, a team that's been, in the playoffs for I mean, probably the last decade at this point. I'm not sure. But yeah, like they've been a perennial playoff contender for years. And, the Flyers essentially won that game and it kind of got stolen away from them in a sense. So yeah, just with that, like I would say look at the results first. Sometimes the results don't speak everything, but I think the process has been there in the game, so that's why I don't really get just the sentiments online. It's a little strange to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems a little over the top considering how far we are into the season and what the results have been. That's
Well,
that's kind of
usually
what
I
my
just usually what I think about it is like before you can really judge any team, you at least need to see 10 games. Even for me, that's on the lesser side. Like typically before you can make a judgment on any team, it's like 20 game sample size
sure.
because any player can go on a cold streak, any player can go on a hot streak where like
Right.
for a week's period, you might not be playing potentially the best. Or you could be playing way above your head, and that might not necessarily be what you actually bring to the table on a consistent basis from game to game. So I think that's why, like, the beginning of the season is really tough to judge any team, right? Like, we need to
Yeah.
see some concrete samples to really understand who's who in terms of, teams that are going to be more upper echelon this season, teams that'll be middle of the pack, teams that'll kind of be,
Right.
bottom,
Right.
bottom, right?
Yeah. All right, so before we get into things, let me just remind everybody, please like and subscribe, hit the notification button to get notified when we release these episodes. Also share our content out. That's also much appreciated if you can do that for us. And also for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and give us a rating and a follow. Again, that is the best way to support this show. And another way to support the show is by checking out our sponsors, Jim Steaks at Fourth and South. Make sure to go to get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Make sure to go check out Jim Steaks at Fourth and South. We're just at that weather where cheesesteak is incredible. So make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. Also, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. They will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company and make sure you get the best claim possible. Again, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And also want to give a brief shout out to our partner, SportsSpider.com. Guys, if you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, sportspider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web. Make sure to check out sportspider.com to keep track of all of your favorite teams. And again, they are our partners and they aggregate content from everything. And our stuff is always directly pinned at the top. So make sure to check out sportspider.com. The link is in the description, both the video and audio version of this podcast. Shout out to Sports Spider. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to get to some news, which directly ties into the lineup. We're going to talk about where we currently stand. We have several topics listed there to talk about current stance. Second half of the show, we're going to go through the special teams. Some changes came in there. We're going to talk about how the Flyers should be handling the goaltending situation and just how it's going in general, at least how we believe they should be handling it moving forward. And also where the lineup currently stands today. We'll do another screen share. I love doing those. So we'll have Puckpedia open. So if you guys are listening to audio, know that like the final 1/3 of the episode, I guess, will be probably best on Puckpedia, as we're doing actually for the special teams who probably doing it too. So if you're listening to the audio, maybe best to switch to the video later or go see what we're talking about if context not helps. And then if we have time, we'll do some prospect updates, but we've been running out of time lately about that stuff, but it's usually better with a bigger sample size anyway. Okay, let's get into it. So the big piece of news coming out right now, and I guess it's two pieces of news that directly correlate to one another. So Cam York was possible to play on Thursday's game. A lot of you will be listening on Thursday, so it could be game day as this comes out Wednesday night. But it looks like Cam York is re-entering the lineup. According to Charlie O'Connor, he was full participation in practice, contact, the whole thing. Looks to be paired with Sanheim once again. Not surprising to me at all. And then the controversial news that's kind of wrapped around that is that Emil Andrae, who had 10 minutes of very good ice time, looked solid in a game where him and Juleson both played about 10 minutes that game against a very good team. But again, never looked at a place. His situation now continues to frustrate a lot of fans who feel that he is clearly one of the best six defensemen in this organization, but yet again finds himself down in the Phantoms in the AHL. I also want to state that Anthony Sanfilippo did have a tweet right before we went online here saying that he talked to people in the organization and said that the Flyers definitely view him as somebody above the top 7 defensemen on this team, but want him to be playing. And that was always my view, is that they are treating him like a prospect. They are taking him slow. They have done that in the past with several prospects, not named Ivan Provorov. So even at times where you thought he was ready, they did kind of go a little slower. He is a defenseman. But we understand people's frustration in the sense that, look, Andre's played well, definitely better than some of the other guys he was competing a spot for, but it's not just his contract, and I'll open to you, Vasili, in a second. It's not just his contract status, which I do think plays a role in it. It gives him the luxury. Again, the team has the luxury to not worry about sending him up and down, and they really want him to play more. He did have 2 assists in his first game, his only game with the Phantoms so far, so he came out lights out for the Phantoms. But there's also the fact that roles, are a big thing that plays into this. You really have 2 to 3 spots on the power play for special teams, but you typically need 6 defensemen for the penalty kill. So I kind of understand where they're coming from, but I think you and I, Vasili, and I'll open up to you here, we both think that he's at least number 5 Definitely, with Risto healthy, he's like the number five defenseman in the depth chart currently, and that excludes Oliver Bonk, obviously, who has not gotten a chance to play.
Yeah, I think just to start off, like it's good to have York back in the lineup. In terms of just the defensive depth, even though the Flyers played
For
well the
sure.
first couple of games and held their own, against those upper echelon teams, I think they're kind of treading with their heads a little bit above water in a sense. Like I think there were certain situations in these games where they didn't get broken down and taken advantage of, but if you would have went a full season or three to five more weeks with these pairings, you would have probably seen some of those breakdowns start to pile up. And that's just because when you have guys that are playing, above their roles, against potential, opponents that are above their skill level, eventually that's going to happen. Things are going to go back to kind of where they typically are. Like usually the first couple of weeks of the season, you can see guys play above their head, but sometimes they'll regress to the mean, right? And
Yep.
I think for the Flyers, they realize that hey, we need to get York back in here. It's a good first three games. We didn't want to rush him or anything. He's obviously healthy now, but yeah, it's good to get our legitimate number two defenseman in the lineup essentially,
Yeah.
especially with
Oh, it's
Ristolainen
huge.
out.
It's
Yeah,
huge.
especially with Ristolainen out, and I think for Andrae, like he's played well, obviously. One thing I mean that Talkett mentioned just about this, and one thing that was thought of is that PK considerations, right? Like Winnipeg has a really good power play, so it's possible that they wanted guys with like more size, like Ginning and Juleson in the lineup, for example, versus an Andrae who can kind of handle an elite power play like that and box out in front of the net and things like that, where they think a smaller guy like Andrae might not succeed in those situations. But yeah, like I think it is better for a guy like Andrae to be in the AHL and actually get playing time versus sit as the seven. Like I think that's a role more suited for a Yinning, Zamula, Juleson type, and whoever they decide ends up being like the seven out of those three because that seems to be the rotation at this point, just with York coming back. So we'll see where it goes. Like I imagine if any of the puck movers get hurt, we're going to see Andrae in the lineup. Another thing too to I think note is you have that third pair of Yinning Juleson. It appears to be going into the matchup tomorrow night against the Jets. It just seems like a pair that's not very mobile. Like,
Yeah.
is it maybe the best in terms of puck moving ability? So like we'll see how long that lasts, right? They're like
Great
that might
point.
get trotted out there and they might think to themselves, hey, you know what? We need Andrae back because these guys can't move the puck up the ice.
Yeah.
And we don't seem to like or trust Zamula's ability to do it, even though that is kind of his repertoire as well as kind of, being more that puck moving type defenseman. But it just seems like they aren't really too pleased with the way that he's been performing.
Yeah.
And for me, it's kind of the same deal with Zamula, or like it's just too hesitant in terms of the decision making. Or at least when Andre's been in the lineup, you're seeing more decisiveness in terms of moving that puck
Oh,
and the mobility, right?
absolutely.
So
I mean, he's naturally a better puck mover than Zamula. He's a
yeah,
better
so
offensive defenseman. He really just has
we'll
the height
we'll
over
see
Andre.
it. We'll see how long it lasts. Like I honestly would not be surprised if we somehow see Andrae back up and one of these guys, maybe like a Yinning or Zamula, go eventually back down through because I just think in terms of the puck moving ability, like they're gonna need Andre's skill set versus maybe some of the other
I,
guys,
and
but we'll see how it goes.
and they could have called up Gilbert and they
Yeah, they
didn't,
did.
right? They called up Andre. We'll see the status of what's going on with Jet Luchanko, who looks to be playing again in his third game in a row, and we're gonna go through the
Yeah.
lineups later. But if a guy like Luchanko wasn't around, they would have that extra roster spot to have Andre. But I love what you said there. I totally agree with that. Just because they're going with something for a game doesn't mean that they will completely change their mind. Obviously, Andre is going to benefit like from playing those heavy minutes. And this was asked as a question: doesn't Andre play the penalty kill at the AHL level? And yes, he does. He's the number one defenseman there. But here, I think they really are counting on physical strength and everything. And I suspect, I don't know this. I have no actual rationale to believe this outside of a gut instinct. But part of me thinks that the Flyers are actually trying to move Igor Zamula. Um, I don't think they want to waive him, but I think part of them is kind of going, okay, like we kind of know where he is now. He's a
Yeah.
serviceable bottom six, guy, bottom pairing guy in the NHL. He's got some offensive game. He's an NHL player. Did we run out of real estate for him so far? Again, they're still missing Risto, so they don't have necessarily the luxury. But I do wonder if he's being kind of he's an RFA at the end of the year. Is this kind of the end of the rope for Zamula, where like, hey, he's going to be with the team for now, but then down the line, does he get moved anyway at some point during the season? And then Andrae by default is now that guy. And there is no more Zamula. And we know that, with Juleson and Gilbert, those are short term guys here. So I understand why people are frustrated with it. I would say you and I are also mildly frustrated with it. I think you might be a little more frustrated than I am from it. Because I kind of anticipated this to some degree, like throughout the year, but
Yeah, I think the
it's no
frustration.
doubt he's right now is top four talent wise of this group, right? Like that's not a doubt.
Yeah, I just think the frustration for me is that Andre seems to be clearly more skilled and talented than all three of these other options, essentially. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where you look at the skill gap, but you realize, hey, it's not always about skill in terms of your third pairing, defenseman. Sometimes you need that physicality, and without Ristolainen, they're missing that. Hence, you kind of need more physical defensemen in the lineup, right? So I think if Ristolainen was in the picture, it might be a different situation because you have that physical presence. You might not have to worry so much about adding physicality on the third pair because you had Risto in there already. So I think it might be a different conversation. But I think to your point with Zamula, it's possible they might be looking to ship him out. Like I just look at the future of the defensive core, and like it seems increasingly by the day that he's kind of going to be the odd man out here. So maybe
Yeah.
they're trying to shop him, and if nobody's interested, maybe it's
Maybe.
something that
Yeah.
he gets put through waivers. But I just think at this point they're not going to make that determination on it because you just had York coming back. You already have Ristolainen injured. There could be other injuries. You don't want to,
You don't have
take
Bonk,
away.
right?
Yeah, you don't want to take away the defensive depth you have to bring up guys that are going to be AHLers like 100%, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and I actually shout out to Jason Martinez. I listened to his interview with Keith Jones yesterday's interview, I think, or last night. He releases him at night, but Jones even said with Bonk being hurt too, like he asked him specifically, would Bonk have been included in this bottom six rotation? He's like, yeah, but potentially, so they're not just missing Risto, they're also missing Bonk, right? Like he was another guy they were kind of relying upon to maybe play a number six role at times during the season. Not thinking he was like NHL ready, but maybe they could sprinkle in some NHL games there, here and there for him. So, yeah, I think it's a great point. So I think people have to be. It sucks as a fan, and I hate saying this to fans, but the reality is that the team is going to be more patient than you are, and it's going to be frustrating to you. But you have to remember they're managing human beings. They have contracts with these guys. They like just because you tweeted out this team is cowardice and blah blah. That is not the case. They were managing employees. Like they're not trying to disrespect people or throw them aside because they had a bad game. That's just not a reality. And especially when you look at the leadership of this team, it's all ex-players. They are not going to do that. They are not going to approach it like, "Oh, these guys suck. Get them out of town." Like that. That's just not a. That's a fan mentality, not a a professional organization that is run by ex-players. They're just not going to treat people that way. So, if they do like just waive Zamula, that is kind of a public thing. Like, okay, he's done here. You know what I mean? Okay. So let's move forward. Um, let's talk about the Flyers' record and where the team stands. We have several topics here. So the Flyers started off pretty decent, like we said, 1-1-1, considering they played Florida Stanley Cup champions twice in a row, and it is the champions without Tkachuk and Barkov. Let's be honest. So they obviously are diminished lineup, but still a very good team, even without those two guys. Like yeah, I said all the time, you have to have a great team overall to win a championship, and they didn't lose anyone. Um, and it's been pretty good so far. So the one thing I love about playing Carolina and Florida twice, and now Winnipeg, who was the President Trophy team right in the beginning of the season, And Jason Martinez did ask Jones this question on his interview as well, and I was going to bring it up anyway on here, and I had a tweet about it. I think it's a fantastic thing that they're playing very difficult competition at the start of the year. You know, it forces you to ramp up quickly. It forces the games have a lot more meaning to them. You're already excited about the beginning of the year, but it's kind of like, okay, we're testing our organization against really good teams straight off the bat. There's no excuses about, hey, you beat Chicago, you beat San Jose. What is this team really like? Like nobody's questioning that now, right? If you do well against it, it can be a big confidence boost. And if you don't do well against it, you can at least say, hey, we're measuring up ourselves against the best here to start the season. So I think it's really good that they're playing very good teams early and they have not been heavily outplayed. There's been some moments where they've been hemmed in their zone, but they've had respectable games in every single one. And obviously against Florida, that was just probably the best game we've seen them play in general this season, including the preseason and everything, just from beginning to end. It was the most epic game. It was obviously a huge win. They battled hard, and for all the crap the defense is getting, the defense has held up pretty well. So, what do you think about the level of competition and where the Flyers currently stand?
Yeah, just a bunch of measuring stick games essentially to start out, right?
Yeah,
Like you're playing, like you said, some upper echelon competition in Florida twice and Carolina. I think, when you play really good teams out of the gate like this, you're kind of forced to give your best right off the bat. Like you're not playing, like you said. I mean, all these guys are trying no matter what team they play, right? But like when you're playing some of the best teams, you yourself want to see how can we hold up against these guys? Like, what are we compared to this type of team, that's been the champs for back-to-back years, or in the playoffs for multiple seasons, winning metropolitan divisions, for example, stuff like that in Carolina. So I think it's just an easy way to start things out like on a good foot because you have the whole team kind of focused on a common goal to say, hey, these teams are really, really good teams. We need to band together and really play our game and really be clean with what we want to do and our execution. Like there's no
yeah,
room, for sloppiness and mistakes against these, upper echelon teams. Whereas when you're playing, maybe bottom feeders, there might be a little bit more leeway to be sloppier to start off the season, things like that, right? So I think it kind of promotes cleanliness in the game, execution, attention to detail, especially when you're implementing new systems like the Flyers are, right? Where it's not all the exact same things being carried over from previous seasons, right? It's new things. So you kind of have to be really focused on, certain plays and where you're going in certain situations, how you're coming, through the neutral zone, how you're protecting the defensive area of the ice, right? We know like with Tocchet system, the Flyers are kind of trying to close off one end of their ice and leave the other side of the ice open for the goalie and things like that. So that you can focus on one side. So I think just all those things come into play, right? Like when you're playing a really, really you know, upper echelon teams like Florida and Carolina, you're gonna want to execute at the highest level. So
yep.
I think it just makes guys a little bit more I wouldn't want to say like I wouldn't want to say like it makes them more intense, but it kind of ups that intensity for them because they're playing these types of teams, right?
Yeah,
So I
almost
think
like a
it's a good
playoff
thing,
game type of vibe.
pretty much, but it also like sets you up for the future too, because you're kind of on a roll now, playing these teams, high intensity against these teams. You're going to continue that with this Winnipeg game, and then when you do start playing teams that aren't on, the same levels, that's where you
Exactly.
may be able to show your edge, right? So it's kind of like almost a head start in a sense, just because you're playing teams that are so competitive, so good from year to year here. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot worse. I love what you said there. I forgot to mention that point, and I was thinking the same thing in my head. Is like, you know, going from playing like a San Jose or whatever, early in the season, it's like, okay, yeah, you beat San Jose, but now you really have competition. It's the opposite now. It's like, you played Florida, you played Winnipeg, you played Carolina, assuming they hold their own against Winnipeg too, right? It's like, okay, you played well against these really good teams. You hopefully you have that mentality of, oh, we should be beating these teams, and they don't
Yeah.
play down to their competition. That's going to be their next test.
It's also
Um,
something to take away too. Like if you play this way against these teams, you're following Tockett's system, you're executing a system. It's like a light bulb goes off
like
for
it's
the team that
working.
is, well, yeah, right. Like they're saying, oh, look, like we're trying all these things Tockett's implemented. we're doing it his way against some of the best teams, and look at how we're playing. We're in all these games and we're not getting blown out. So what he's saying must be accurate and must work, right? So it almost gets the players to kind of buy in
Buy
more
in.
because
Yeah.
yeah, because they're starting out, so well against these upper echelon teams, implementing what Tockett's kind of put into place. So that's a factor too. I think that's important to
I
note.
love that. I love that. Yeah, the buy-in comes a little closer when you're showing success against really good teams. And again, like team like Florida, it's like they know their system, right? Like
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
Carolina, like they're not learning a new system.
Those are the
They're
measuring sticks in terms of
yeah,
system
they've
play.
had years together of success, and it's tough. It's tough to do what they've done, quite frankly, to learn a new system and play a team that's rock solid in their foundation and talented. And again, they could have beat Carolina. They were literally one.
Well,
I don't want to call it a bad call because from my understanding, they did oblige. They did go by the rule book, but it's kind of like a, bullshit call. It's kind of like, yeah, we know what
yeah.
you did, Anderson. We see you. Um, yeah, so the next thing to talk about is something that I really was hoping was going to be the case. We did mention in the offseason facility that like, look, these surgeries that you have to go through, we want them to be quick recovery, but when you have two back-to-back surgeries, like maybe it's taken a lot longer to heal, to get back to normal than we'd like to admit. And Sean Couturier had his best game as a Flyer in some time. Obviously, a 4-point night. He's had a big game last year as well, but I think in this game he really looked like old Sean Couturier, just top to bottom throughout the game. Like he was effective in every situation he was thrown in. And obviously, it was a big game for him. I think it's huge, not just for Couturier, it's also huge because he's captain of the team. I wouldn't say he like completely carried the team on his back because the team played well. But he is the number one center on the team. He played as such, and I think it was just so great to see. I think that was like maybe the biggest icing of the cake of the win against Florida is like that it was Sean Couturier kind of leading the way, which is something we haven't seen for a while. Cause like Konechny had like an assist, he had a good game, but it wasn't like the two of them were on fire. It was like, no, everywhere that you saw, Couturier play, he was effective and even set up like Forrester's goal. Like everywhere he was effective. So hopefully we're seeing where Couturier really is. He did also say that this is the best he's felt, even better than prior to the surgery. So hopefully that is not like just an exaggeration and really is the case because it would be huge if we get a 60 because we talked about this facility. We saw this possibility. Hopefully we do get a 60, 65 point Sean Couturier, maybe even 70 point Sean Couturier. And then we're talking about Selke nominations type of guy. Oh, and by the way, he's like a hair under 60% on the faceoff dot as well.
Yeah, he's been killing it on the faceoffs. Just to read a stat line from the last game, he was 7 for 14 on the faceoff, so 15%. And then, oh wait, sorry, the stats are like disappearing on me here. This is really weird. Yeah, so he had 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, 2 penalty minutes, 4 shots on goal, 1 hit, 1 block in all of 16 minutes and 41 seconds. So yeah, like not even 20 minutes of ice time and producing 4 points, and a bunch of shot on goals, block, face-offs, you name it. He kind of did it all for them. I think for Couturier, like we kind of envisioned this, right? Like we kind of forecasted that we expected a bit of a bump in offensive production, just with the fact that Tortorella wasn't using him very much offensively, whereas Tocchet seems to be doing the opposite of that. He's putting him in all the offensive situations, up to the first power play unit,
Hmm.
first penalty killing unit. He wasn't even really on the PK much the last couple of years, which is pretty strange considering his Selkie acumen. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I think if you look at Couturier, he's never going to be the fleetest of foot, especially with the back surgeries at this point. But it's the IQ, the positioning, where he puts himself on the ice. He just knows where to be. Like, look at that goal he set up where he makes the for Forster, right? He kind of does the stick lift there on the boards, passes it to Forster in the middle of the ice. He has a nice little dangle in between the legs and snipes it. Like that's vintage Couturier stuff, right? Like getting it on the forecheck, making a strong stick play, finding the man who's open with the lane, with the vision, with the passing, and then having him score one, and then also himself getting open in a scoring area
Yeah.
and making himself available, taking a hit, and then Zegers with a insane pass behind the net, essentially getting hammered by two guys and still is able to find him. So I just think for Couturier, it's a great start. Obviously, we'll see how he follows it up, but to do it against one of the best teams in the league in Florida, that's a great confidence booster for him. He's been in the league for so long, so I'm sure he doesn't need something like that. But I think just as a guy who's gone through so much with the back surgeries, kind of has been yo-yoed all over the place in the line the last couple of years. It probably feels good to get to do it against one of the best teams with the coach using him in a prominent role. The way a captain's essentially supposed to be played. So yeah,
Yeah, and I did see that he is a season below Claude Giroux and Bobby Clark for the longest tenure Flyers in history.
it's
And it
crazy.
does make you think if he finishes out his contract here, he will be the longest tenure Philadelphia Flyer in history. And
Which is wild,
I think there's
wild.
a very good chance of that happening, considering he's captain, that he at least sees the end of his contract and
Yeah.
hits 15 years as a Philadelphia Flyer. So um, would be pretty awesome. So the next elephant in the room is on the other opposite end of the spectrum, and that's Matvei Michkov. There has been a lot of panic about this, though. I think it's subdued a little bit. I haven't noticed as much panic over the last day or two, just because I think he
Winning
bought.
helps, Yariv.
Yeah, and I also think he bought so much credibility off of his strong play last year that I don't think anybody's really worried about like is this the real Michkov or something like that. But obviously Matvei Michkov has I looked it up, he's 14th on the team in ice time. Not by much, but he's just kind of dangling right under 15 minutes a night. The minutes have definitely been spread out around more evenly. Like you even said it with the Sean Couturier thing, like he didn't play 19 minutes or whatever. He's definitely using his whole lineup. He being Rick
Forward
Tocchet.
specifically. Yeah, like if
Yes.
you look at the forward time on ice, like I don't think there's any forward that was over 20. I think Konechny had 19 minutes the last game. It's just the defensemen who are getting,
Yes.
more than 20-minute usage
Yeah.
essentially.
So
But
it's
that's what
been
they were saying, right? Like they wanted this to be a four lineup type, like four line type of team in terms of the
and
rotation.
that and
So
that's what he's doing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I did look it up. Michkov is 10 seconds per game. Third, in third, 10 seconds less than the number one guy on power play time per game. So he is still getting power play time. That is not really a question. But we did see like some, minor benchings, mostly because of like trying to retain the league. But we're not seeing the same trust that was built up through Tortorella, who, again, remember, like Tortorella built his trust up. And then by the end of the year with Shaw was really just letting Michkov off the leash when they were just having fun. Um, but you have to build that relationship back up. I don't think Michkov has played terribly, but he definitely has not. He doesn't look like the strong Michkov. And I liked what Jordan Hall tweeted today, where he was saying he's like, funny, I didn't hear anybody mention his being out of shape when he was in those drills and he was in the head of the drills of everybody on the ice and in preseason when he had 4 points in 4 games. I think it's a little bit of like, look, he's 20. He's going to go through his struggle periods. He's probably just doing it right now, and I think any day he's going to get back up. So I think there's been some panic over it, but I do think it's been a little bit subdued over the past 24 hours. And I agree with you. I think winning definitely helps that. Um, but there's definitely a little bit of freaking out with like watching young guys succeed around the league. People are like wondering, well, why
yeah.
are our young guys not succeeding?
Wow.
Right.
I mean, I think it's a little unwarranted. Like it's only been 3 games. He's 20 years old. It'd be different if he was getting like 5 minutes of ice time a night or like clearly being benched.
He's
Like,
getting like
I mean,
Luchanko minutes, 9 minutes or something.
yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, with the Carolina game, he had that turnover. It wasn't a good play. He turned the puck over
Are you talking
blatantly.
about
There,
are you talking about the drop pass?
no, no, no. He made a play like he's in his
Oh,
own
the
zone.
Carolina game. Carolina. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. No, so yeah, I was
That
just
was a
saying like the
bad pass. Yeah.
Carolina game, he's in his own zone. Like he tries to pass it out of the zone, he gives it away. Like any
At a
coach is
very
gonna be like,
crucial minute
yeah,
too.
yeah. Like you're in a, yeah, you're in a, in a crucial time in the game, it's 3-3. You can't make that pass. Any coach is going to do that. They're going to sit him down. Other players were playing better that weren't making those types of plays. So naturally, that's what's going to happen. He hasn't been at his best. We've seen Michkov at his best. So I think easily we can all say that who've been watching the Flyers this past year that, hey, he hasn't been his best. When he's at his best, there's a lot more chances, a lot more creativity. He's going through a bit of a cold streak right now, but he's only a 20-year-old kid. Like I tweeted out the other day before the Florida game, like I wouldn't be surprised, despite all this, that he's gonna have a really big game, and then after this, nobody's gonna care, right? So like I think we just need to temper our expectations. It's only a sophomore season. I have some quotes I just want to read just from today's like post practice. So this is Michkov on the ankle injury that was reported.
Right.
That well not reported during the summer, but
Yeah.
he's basically stated, "Yeah, I was training. I just got a minor injury in my ankle, so now slowly getting back into shape. The fact that I haven't scored in 3 games has absolutely nothing to do with that." Firstly, I love that because he's not putting the onus on the injury; he's taking it upon himself, and we kind of know how hard he is on himself
Yeah.
typically, so that's not surprising to me. And then Talkett was also really complimentary of Michkov the last 2 practices. He said that Michkov approached the staff today to do more video work. And this is the last quote from Michkov, just regarding Talk and the relationship. Everything is good with the coach, talking pretty much every day. He tells me how he wants to see my game. I tell him how I see my game. We find common ground and continue working. So to me, it just seems like, the kid wants to keep working with the coach to continue to get better. It's going to be a learning curve in a sense that he's feeling his game out, like Talkett in terms of Michkov. And I'm sure Michkov is feeling out what Talkett wants from him, right? At the end of the day, new systems and things like that. It might take some time for things to all come together here. I think for Michkov, like we're gonna see, increase in production in the next couple of games. I just think it's a kid starting the season out with a potential cold streak. We saw last season he would go certain, stretches, 5, 6 games, maybe not looking the best, and then really hit the ground running. So I would expect something like that to happen going forward, right? But yeah, I just think like in terms of the out of shape stuff and spit and chiclet stuff and maybe sure like maybe the injury happened and he's a little bit out of condition, but I don't think that, and especially from seeing him on the ice, like to me he doesn't look like a guy that's wildly out of shape or like behind the play or anything. I just think there's some miscues in terms of decision making, but that happens with all young players. Nobody's
Yeah.
mistake free in terms of hockey. So
Yeah, and I saw him getting a lot of crap. The reason I thought you were talking about the Florida game is because he had this like really nice play where he had a drop pass through the legs, and it ended up being a turnover, but it really was right at the feet of Noah Juleson, who just
yeah,
completely
he,
messed the
sh-
play up.
he should have got that puck for
Yeah, and
sure.
it should have been a very nice play. I think he's had a little bit of bad luck. Like he's had some really good setups as well that haven't materialized into goals.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is just kind of like, okay, we're watching a weird period. We watched an entire month of him, not have much offensive success and then come and be over a point a game, right afterwards. So, and again, like you hope that your player's immune to a sophomore slump, but it's pretty common for like 99% of players to go through a sophomore slump. So, I did think, if you guys remember when we had Bill Meltzer on here, he said there could be, a slower start to Michkov's season. And like what Spit and Chicklets brought out, like we knew that already. Like to us, it was not like
It's
it
not
went
anything
public,
completely new.
but it's
Yeah.
nothing we didn't hear. We just didn't
Well,
publicize it because we don't care.
the local media heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
Didn't make much of it after seeing how he performed the drills and things like that, leading the pack, right? So it's kind of just like conditioning's an interesting thing. Like it might not be conditioning in the sense that like, oh, he looks out of shape, but it's like more conditioning in the sense of like endurance, right? That's what I
Yeah.
think it might be, where it's just like, oh, you know, you're out there for a shift that's a little extended. Like instead of it being a 50-second shift, it's a minute 20. And now that it's a minute 20, those extra 30 seconds, maybe the endurance isn't
I,
up to par and
y-
it's tougher to stay out there on the ice, right? But
yeah. And
that stuff can increase as the season goes along,
and
especially if you haven't, been able to train the proper way with that injury. So
Yeah, and I saw him actually make a mistake like that where he stayed on the ice far too long and and there was a turnover and I think it was against Carolina and he wasn't able to get back because he was gassed and all of his line mates were off the ice except for him. So again, it's like little details that I think he just needs to work through. I'm not too concerned about it. Again,
To
like
me,
a
he's looked good. Like I think he's created some chances, like you said, and they just
right.
haven't gone
Yeah,
in, right?
he
Like
he hasn't looked like prime Michkov,
not
but
dominant, yeah.
yeah, but not like, hey, does this guy belong here
No,
type of play.
one thing I'll say is I just want to see him shoot the puck a bit more. I think we haven't really seen him shoot
Yeah.
as much
Well,
these first three games, and I think that's when he's at his best, right? When he's confident, take those shots, move to open ice, and kind of rip the puck. And I
I
think
think that's been a
that's
big
missing a little bit.
I think
So
that's missing with the entire squad, to be honest with you. And right now, I did look it up. Flyers are like in the bottom five, I think, if I remember correctly, bottom seven for shots on game. They have played less games than some of the teams, so it doesn't really equate,
correlate,
but they
yeah.
definitely have not shot enough. I think it's improving, especially in the game against Florida. But they weren't shooting that much to start the season. And it looks like that's kind of being remedied. Like
Yeah.
Taka did bring it up
But
publicly.
to me, that's all system familiarity though, because I think
Sure.
guys are like want to make sure they're in the right spots. So like you're kind of not overthinking it, but like, oh, I need to get here quick. And then you might forego taking that shot because you want to move to a certain area to get that scoring chance created. So like I think we'll see it ramp up a little more here. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the other Russian player I wanted to bring up is that, we did talk about Igor Zamula. Um, and there was a comment by his agent. Um, I don't have the quote in front of me, which is stupid because I forgot to look it up prior to this.
Let me try to
Um,
find it. One sec.
yeah, this was dumb by me. Hold on, let me see if I can find it real quick too. Zamula's agent. Jesus, feel so unprepared right now.
No, I found it here. Let me read
Yeah.
it.
Okay, you want to
So
read it out loud?
yeah, it's from his agent Shumi Babiev. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Igor being given the chance to blossom and play at his level, the way he's capable of playing. He can't fully realize his potential because he's not given the opportunity. He's forced into a box. We always look forward to that opportunity. He's quite a good power play player and a good puck handler. It's tough when he's limited tactically. We'll see. He's a team player, so he always does what his coach tells him to do. The main thing is for him to play at a good level. Um, yeah, like those are
That
interesting
loops back to what
comments.
I was saying, right? Where it kind of feels like he's on his way out a little bit.
Yeah, well, those comments definitely seem like a player that is a bit disgruntled in the sense that maybe he thinks he's not getting the opportunities he should be getting. I would combat that though with saying he has gotten a lot of opportunities and not look good and was
Right.
continued to be given opportunities and still hasn't, turned the play around. Like I just look at for me, it's all about the pacing with Zamula. I just think like he's constantly put in the lineup and he just seems so slow to move the puck off his stick or make a decision, or he always seems handcuffed with the puck in a way. Like maybe he feels like um he's not given that opportunity because he's playing on the third pair, so he doesn't have the ability to like move the puck efficiently to scorers and have his offensive ability be showcased. But I think to move up in the NHL lineup, you have to show it on, a bottom line or a third pair and then naturally progress your way. You can't just, you know, say, oh, well, I want to be placed there because that's where I can showcase my ability. You should be able to do it playing with anybody. It doesn't matter, where you are in the
Yes.
lineup, right? If you're an
Especially in a
NHL player
defensive
and a
system.
contributor. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just think for him, like, make do with what you've been given. It's not like he hasn't had ample game time. Like he's had over 50 games the last couple seasons. And with Tortorella as the coach, like he was put on that top power play numerous occasions.
Yes.
And
And he shouldn't
the
have been.
power, yeah, he shouldn't have really been, but the power play's been terrible nonetheless. So like, it's not like he's never been put on the power play at all. Like I could see the agent's point if he was never given any power play time whatsoever the last 3 years. And I could say, hey, maybe he's a power play player. He hasn't literally gotten zero power play shifts. Maybe he needs that in his game to kind of get more touches, feel it out, get accustomed to what's happening in the game and kind of show off his skill set. But he hasn't done that at all in the power play. So yeah.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting that, with all the hate that he's getting, publicly online, um, and then the agent says that and he's an RFA. I just have a feeling that he's being shopped. I don't know if they're actually going to get like a good return, but you could, one, you could get a veteran defenseman for him. A team wants to
Yeah.
go younger, you give up, or yeah, wants to go younger, you grab a veteran in replace of him. The other option is, a pick or like another struggling defenseman. You kind of just
Similar
swap
age.
problems and hope that, the guy works out for you. It's kind of like swap our problems type of thing. But I would not be surprised. We were talking about Bobby Brink being an RFA and how that could play into his future. We're going to talk about him in a minute. That might be changing now. But, you look at a guy who hasn't really nailed his place in the lineup and an RFA. I just suspect the Flyers are shopping him. That doesn't mean he's immediately being
No, no.
traded or waived, but there definitely has to
Well,
be conversations going on.
I just think that with him and potentially moving him, like they want to see that York's, 100% healthy, obviously.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Get him into like 5, 10 games, make sure he, plays well in those games, looks himself, and then maybe pull the trigger on something like that if it is in the works,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah. And again, the Flyers lack some picks at like the later rounds too. Not that I'm saying they should trade him for like a fifth or something like that, but because it's probably not that valuable to the Flyers. But there might be like something in the works like down the season where I would not be surprised if Zamula is in that package. It's a very
Yeah, agreed.
tradable contract. He's an RFA. Again, hasn't found his place here, and people are going to need defense like NHL defensemen as the season goes on, due to injuries or whatnot. So I would not be surprised if he's on his way out. Okay, let's go to more fun conversations. So let's talk about Jet Luchanko and Grebenkin. They didn't make the lineup the first game of the season. Told people not to panic about that, how it didn't matter, and it has not. So it looks as of right now, Luchanko and Gabrankin have kind of nailed their roster spot, and both have had definitely their moments of shining. Gabrankin, while he's not amazing in the neutral zone, when he is down low, he's pretty damn good. Along the boards, he's been incredibly impressive. Obviously, has an assist in 2 games. Looks like a guy who potentially could be elevated in the lineup at some point. You look at Dvorak's position. Maybe that's somebody who can play with Dvorak, or maybe Luchanko can play, or I'm sorry, instead of Dvorak, or maybe Luchanko, since now the center position is now being shared for Zegras a little bit. Maybe there's an opportunity to play Luchanko there and move Dvorak down, but then you can play the fourth line a little bit more minutes, and it gives Gabrankin like a veteran to play with. But either way, both of them have definitely been impressive. Luchanko is still not shooting, which is an issue. He's had 1 shot attempt so far, but he's played. He's been incredibly impressive defensively, which we expected from him. And it seems like the offensive game, he does have these like moments of burst with like setups, where he does set somebody up for like a golden opportunity, and he hasn't had that many minutes. He's also been 50% on the faceoff dot, which is pretty good for a rookie. Very good actually for a rookie. Most rookies come in at around 40%. So I think there's a lot of promise there. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Jet specifically, because if he continues to play 9 minutes a night, I do suspect he'll get sent back, just because do they really want him playing that little? Maybe they suspect there might be an injury, sometime in the near future, and then they can elevate him. But it looks like to me, I mean, I see no signs that Gabrankin is not here to stay for the remainder of the season, at least as of right now. He doesn't look at a place at all, and I think he's been really impressive in the small minutes he's had. And quite frankly, this offense is kind of loaded. It might not be packed with like superstar players, but everybody's good right now, top down. Like the entire lineup is good. So kind of hard to move those guys up, especially when the team is winning. Maybe we need to wait for a losing streak or something like that for things to change. But I think we've both been really happy with their performances, right?
Yeah, the chemistry with the forwards has looked good. Like I don't think there's a reason to really change anything up right now. But we'll see obviously how they continue to progress in the coming games. Like I think for the fourth line specifically, they've been effective, right? Like we've seen Rick Tocchet willing to use them. A fourth line's effective when the coach continues to trot it out there. You easily, find when coaches are kind of limiting the fourth line that they don't think very highly of them. So I think the
Right.
fact that they're getting put out there, especially against these upper echelon teams, because you can easily hide a fourth line against a Carolina or a Florida and kind of try to make it top three line heavy, top nine heavy, and they didn't do that. I mean, Luchanko didn't get considerable amount of ice time in the first couple games. Like I think the last game against Florida, what he had 8 minutes, 49 seconds. So it's like nothing crazy. He's not getting over 10 minutes to your point. I think that might be where they look at it and say, hey, this kid's only playing like 8, 9 minutes. I know Briere before the season began stated like if he's not getting the ice time, they're gonna have to
Yeah.
consider it. So I think we'll see. It's only been 2 games though, so maybe they're trying to kind of ease him into it. We see the ice time rise a little bit when you're
Maybe
not
some
playing.
penalty kill time
Yeah,
as
but
well.
also when you're not playing, the two of arguably the best teams in the league. Like I think Tocchet also realizes, hey, this is a young kid playing against two really good teams. He might be biting off a little bit more than he can chew against, some of the matchups, right? Like if you get him out against certain lines versus other lines, it might not
Sure.
always be the best. You also weren't at home, the one game against Carolina, so it's harder to pick who you're going to put that fourth line up against. So I think when we see them face maybe teams that aren't of the ilk of Carolina, Florida, we might see more minutes for the fourth line in Luchanko. So I think we'll see like after I think he's gonna get the full 9 games and then they'll do an assessment on the actual time
What
on
they
ice. But
think, yeah.
yeah, but like for Luchanko specifically, like I've liked his play. You see the speed, right? Like you see him being able to carry the puck up to the neutral zone, make those entries, even making quick decisions with the puck. But what I mainly noticed, and that's Luchanko and Grebenkin on the line, is just disrupting plays. Like there's been several times where they've kind of been on the forecheck in the offensive zone, gotten the puck back and started a cycle. Like there was a couple shifts where they hemmed the Panthers in the last game, controlled the puck down low, where Grebenkin's really protecting the puck. And then him and Luchanko are kind of swapping the puck down low, and then Luchanko set Grebenkin up for a nice chance. He couldn't capitalize. So I think if you're looking at the fourth line of Abel's, Deslauriers, Hathaway, and then this fourth line, this one's night and day, head and shoulders above the other
And
one.
vastly more exciting for us,
Yeah,
honestly.
definitely, right? So I just think from a gameplay standpoint, you can't look at both fourth lines and be like, well, they've been pretty similar. No, one's clearly here, the other
Yes.
one's clearly here. So I think we'll continue to see them in the lineup. And I think at that point, as long as Luchenko's actually getting played and not being scratched, then you got to really just look at the minutes. So I think start to get him maybe around like 10 to 12 minutes. I think they'll be willing to keep him because I think the experience is going to outweigh getting sent back to junior. But yeah, like Luchanko, Grebenkin, to me, they both seem like they belong at this point. And I think for Grebenkin, like he's looked good offensively to the point that like when he's on the ice below the goal line, like you really can't get the puck off him. And that kind
Yeah.
of makes me
He's been a
excited in the sense
beast.
of like
Yeah.
if you put him with really talented offensive players, he could be that guy that's frees the puck up down low and kind of dish it out front. So I'm interested to see kind of where that goes. But
And there will be injuries, right? So they will,
yeah,
and that might be what the Flyers are kind of looking at too, is like, okay, nobody's injured right now, but what happens if two guys go down? All of a sudden Luchanko and Gabrankin's minutes go up significantly
yeah,
because Luchanko immediately enters the top nine, and same with Gabrankin, right? So it's like, and then you're talking about 14 minutes a night, right? Rather than you're 13 minutes a night rather than, the nine that they're playing now. Um, and shout out to Rodrigo Abels, who obviously had an excellent preseason. He also is 77% on the faceoff dot in that one game
yeah,
he played.
really
So
good.
he is. It's really D'Lo that is the problem in the offensive sense. You use the perfect word. I'll bring it up again. Neutered. He neuters whatever line offensively he's on because he's just not that capable offensively. Hell, the guy was drafted as a defenseman. So this is a guy who his physical element is what got him into the NHL. And he is, I'll make it clear, elite at that element of the game. The intimidation factor, the fighting, it's definitely there. And he is a guy that, like Zamula, unless the Flyers are in the playoffs where they literally are holding on to this guy in their back pocket to be like, okay, we're going to get into these grind games, we're a playoff team where, yeah, we might be the last seed or whatever, but we're going to need this guy. Maybe we have to throw him into a game and it's worth it to us. But he's a guy who I do think has trade value around the trade deadline. You eat 50% of his contract, you move him out for like a fourth, fifth round pick. Which we've seen back, at times during the season where like a fighter gets moved for more than he's probably worth. So I do think that like D'Lo's time here is ending anyway because of his contract. Is I believe this is the last year of his deal as well, and it's not a huge contract, but it is 1.8 million. So it's something you might have to eat a little bit, 25, 50%, something like that. But I could see D'Lo's time in Philly coming to an end before the end of the season. But again, like we were talking about our award show, and I just saw that he was like working with the troops today at practice, like handing out hats and like taking pictures with them. Like he is that guy for this organization.
Yeah,
And I'm okay
exactly.
with that value being there. I also don't think he's a net negative when he's on the ice. He's like a neutral. Like
Well, he's
he's
not bad defensively or
right.
anything. Yeah.
Right, exactly. He's not bad defensively. He's never a liability. It's just he's not going to score. He might have a goal or two a game or a year, and that's pretty much what you're getting out of the guy at this point, right? Like he's like a 5 goal guy
It's
if he
it's about the
plays all season,
physicality. It's
maybe.
about the physicality with him, realistically,
Yeah.
right? So
And I still believe that people think the game has evolved beyond this point, and I really do not believe it has at all. Like this game is heavily built on intimidation and physicality. And again, that is why Andrae is being sad. His skill set is not that. Again, if he wasn't waiver exempt, he'd be most likely in the lineup or at least rotated in as the number 7. I think they're trying to develop him a little bit more to be like, okay, if we're gonna put him in the NHL, let's be 100% sure because he is smaller. We don't want to get him getting crushed in his, and his and his game getting rattled. I think physicality is a big part of this game still. And I don't think the Flyers are stupid for wanting to have big defensemen. I think they're 100% right actually. And you see that not just in the playoffs but also in the better teams in the NHL. Majority of them have sizable defensemen on the back end. So, and you look at a guy like D'Lo, and again, like you have a lot of young players on this team. He does keep things honest. That is a thing. It's just not needed every day, which is the problem with D'Lo. It's like it's not needed every game, right? It's only a handful of times really in the year you're gonna have to deal with it. So eventually we'll see what happens with Deslauriers, but I suspect that he's going to be, and I think he knows this, not playing many games this year, maybe 15 games for the Flyers this year, something like that. And I think we're seeing that. Like, even if one of the young kids gets taken out, like Luchanko, I think it's Obels that's going in first, not Deslauriers. All right,
yeah, I agree.
let's talk about the exciting line on the team, and that's the Noah Cates line. Look, I still believe that there at some point needs to be breaking up of this line to see. It's a shame that they didn't play Forrester more in preseason, understandably so, just to see how it worked out. But the reality is that this line has been very good for 2 seasons, for at least all last season now. And like going into this season, they look really good every night. And I think a lot of people, but the only thing I disagree with it is I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's their chemistry. I don't think it's as much their chemistry as that they are all good players. Like all three of them are good. Like Bobby Brink has hit another level. That game he played against Carolina was the best he's ever looked, ever, in my opinion, for the
Yeah, he
Flyers.
was
Like
he was all over it. Yeah.
he looked so much faster than last year. His hands are better. He's more aggressive. He's better defensively even than last year. Forrester's still kind of working in there, but looks like himself. Who I am super high on him, and I have always been extremely high on Noah Cates, who looks like offensively is taking a jump. I think the reality is that these are all three really good players. I think the Flyers look at their lineup right now, and they essentially have 3 second lines, and that is their strength. Is like yes, they don't have an elite number one line, though maybe that is changing if Couturier takes is back to his old self. That might be a legitimate number one line. And we obviously saw that moment of greatness from Trevor Zegras. But like the reality is like they're just good. And all three of them are good. I mean, there's nothing else to be said. And, it does make me question what I said about Bobby Brink, because if he continues to play the way he played, it's hard for you to go, even though you have a Denver Barkey and you have all these wingers and Porter Martone. You're like, maybe he's not the odd man out, though. We kind of pick on Tippett, who I think has actually looked really good over the past couple of games. but he might be the odd man out just because of his age. And, he's a little bit older and he doesn't have a line that he completely fits in 100% like Bobby Brink does. So, what are your thoughts there? Do you think it's the chemistry or do you think it's just the talent? Because it's obviously a combination of both, but I think the talent level is much higher than people anticipated to begin with, which is why people keep talking about the chemistry, but I also think it's just the talent. I think you could swap out Forrester
Well,
with somebody else, and that line is still going to be really good.
yeah, I think you could swap out one of the guys and they'd still have a pretty effective line. Like I think all these guys are still young players, right? So they're going to continue to progress. Like
Sure.
what we saw in their first couple seasons in the league, which that's what it was for Kate's Brink and Forster. The last 2 years were the first couple seasons. They were kind of just getting their footing in the league and establishing themselves, understanding what they could do in the NHL and what they could, impact the game and how they can impact the game. So I think you're going to continue to see them to progress, right? Like I think it was the tip of the iceberg last season. A lot of these guys, like I said, are young players, so they're not going to just stagnate and stay, at the same exact level that they were, right? So I think it's a combination of chemistry and knowing each other because you've played in the past, but also
Sure.
just getting better, right? Like you trained, had a big summer, got stronger, got faster. Naturally, you're gonna, see those results on the ice. All three guys to start, right? 3 points in 3 games. Brink 2 goals, 1 assist. Forrester and Cates both a goal, 2 assists each. So that just shows it's not, the forechecking and hemming teams in
And
and,
that sick move that
and
Kate's made. What was that, game one?
oh yeah. Yeah, game one where he made that nasty cut and scored
Cut
that
on the
goal.
inside, hit the post.
Yeah, beautiful
Love it.
play.
It
But
was so
yeah,
nice.
I think too, like for these guys, it's not just the forechecking that you're seeing, like they're hemming teams in almost every time they're on the ice.
Relentless. Yeah.
Lots of offensive pressure. But yeah, it's just like their ability to move around the ice, and like find open spaces too. Like I think these guys know where to go, get to the net. Like it's a simple game plan, right? Like, move the puck, cycle it around, try to get the team kind of chasing after you, and then lanes naturally are going to open up and then funnel everything to the net. Like it's a very simple kind of way that they're playing, simple style of hockey. So I think that's compounding as well. They all know, hey, like we're playing this style. This is how we're kind of executing right now, all three of us to be successful. So I think that's a part of it too. They have the same mentality in terms of like when we're, having the puck, we're not just looking for the first chance we get offensively. We want to cycle it. We want to wear these guys down. Then we kind of bring it to the net. And I think sometimes when you're putting together a lot of different combinations, and you're not keeping players together, it's hard for them to know what exactly their identity is as a line and what exactly they're trying to do and how they're trying to execute. So I think that's kind of why they're having so much success because all three of them know this is what we need to do to be successful. And I think, that's the benefit of having them be that kind of old, reliable line, like I was saying last week, where like you could just put them out there and we know what they are, we know what they're going to do. And I think that's why Talkett's kind of been utilizing that because he's trying to figure out the other lines and how they are working and what their identities are going to be. I think to your point though, like if let's say some of the other lines don't come together, we will see this line get broken up because each of these three guys knows what they bring to a line and they can
Right.
bring that to another line,
Exa-
right? So
exactly. I think they're all three of them are relentless forecheckers. And that's some of what is kind of missing. Like that's why we kept talking about like, okay, if Michkov's gonna be with Zegras, then let's get well, obviously at least Dvorak.
Forrester, yeah.
Or, it was like Dvorak, Forrester, Cates. Like, let's get one of
Someone to
these
retrieve
guys.
those pucks. Yeah.
Right. And we saw that back in the day when Forrester was with Couturier and TK. That also worked before Michkov joined the team. But I do think when you look at the combinations that the Flyers have right now, all three of those units, they're going to be tough to play against. And then you consider that youth of the fourth line, which again, Luchanko, in my opinion, potential top line center. Then you have Grebenkin, who's clearly like at least a middle six guy at the NHL level with the way he's playing. Hathaway being one of the best fourth liners in the league. You really have four dangerous lines, and this is what we were hoping for. Is what we talked about in the preseason. We do not want a garbage fourth line anymore. I am over that. I am over of just like, well, these are the leftovers, and they'll go in and muck and grind. Like I think this team needs to be able to attack at all four lines. It needs to be their strength is their balance, and I think having that Kate's line to rely upon, where if a line is struggling, you always can throw that third line out there. And that's how he's using them right now, right? He starts the game with them. He starts periods with them. He's like, he knows what he's going to get when he throws these three guys out there. But I don't want them to become obsessed with one line. I want them to make sure that all of the lines are rolling. But because you can always go back to it, it's always going to work. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah.
You can always be like, okay, well, I need that third line back. Throw them together that same game. But maybe it's worth it even during a game to be like, you know what? One shift, I'm going to put Forrester out there with Couturier, Michkov or something, right? Like, just try it. Like, just pepper it in there. And, one shift, I'm going to put Luchanko with Zegras and Tippett. Or
Yeah.
I'm going to put Grebenkin out there with them. I think they need to do that a little bit within games just to keep the team, keep things fresh a little bit. Play with those other combinations because you might need them. And I would imagine they're playing with it a little bit during practice. You don't want to overdo it, because you want to find chemistry and all that. But as the season goes on, it might be worth it to kind of pepper that stuff in there, and not to become too in love with your line combinations, which is going to link right into our next conversation about special teams, because you cannot fall in love with those lines either, especially when, yes, they're in middle of the road right now. They have one power play goal, and I think they're ranked 20th in the league. But that goal was like kind of lucky. So before we get into special team, I just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for notifications. And also for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and give us a rating and a follow if you can. That is the best way to support the show. So if you have not done that so far and you've made it this far, please do so now. The two of us both humbly appreciate it. And also make sure to check out flyersnittygritty.com. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through special teams. We'll start off with the power play. Excuse me. And then we'll get into the penalty kill, the power kill, as people like to say. So as of right now, I had this open earlier. So the Flyers power play, I believe, okay, it is ranked. Why is this not? Sorry. There we go. It is ranked 15th at 20%, which is, Flyers did start off strong last year, but they've had 5 opportunities on the power play, which is not much.
Yeah, limited.
Only Columbus has less with 4. They're at 25%. So yeah, the Flyers are 1 for 5. And that only goal is by Owen Tippett, who for the first time in like over a season has scored a power play goal. And it was a weird bounce off the wall. So we do have
It's a lucky goal.
Hey, we'll take it at this point. But they did have that one shift though, where the top unit, as you can say, the Michkov unit, they did have like pretty much a minute and 50 seconds of possession directly in the zone, and just really had a lot of scoring opportunities, a lot that Michkov set up actually. But none materialized into an actual goal. So there was a change today. Vasili alluded to it earlier. Sean Couturier is now being swapped with Trevor Zegras in the top unit. I will say I'm a little disappointed because I always thought that it should be Tippett that's taken out of the top power play, and they should let Noah Cates handle the face-offs at the second unit. And I always thought Sean Couturier should be on the top unit. I assume this kind of came, one, from the lack of success on the power play. Overall, there's been some shorthanded goals as well. And also, the ability to win faceoffs. So, Trevor Zegras has now been moved to play with, the Cates line essentially and Travis Sanheim. I will say they are trying to use these pairings, these groups like pretty equally. So far I've noticed like, yeah, there is a number 1, but the number 2 line typically gets like around a minute of power play time. It's been happening anyway. I suspect part of this is temporary, but it could work out well. Like that second unit is more defensively responsible, so they kind of move that balance around. But again, I definitely would have gone with Trevor Zegras on the top power play and move down Tippett rather than move down Zegras. That's kind of where my head is at, because I assume Zegras is, we have here, that Zegras is like playing the point, but he's probably more around the half wall. um, rather than anything. I didn't know exactly how to put these together. But what are your thoughts, Vasily?
Yeah, like I think the power play hasn't been good, so that's probably why they're going to change it up. Like if you haven't had a lot of success so far, they're not going to just keep it stagnant. I would have liked to see more time for Zegras and Michkov together on the power play just to kind of see the creativity blossom a little bit. But what this points to me is that there isn't a first or a second unit. Like I think it's going to be kind of based on whatever unit's playing better. I think that's why they put Zegras on the second unit. They know he's able to dish the puck. He's got that playmaking ability and that vision. To me, it seems like this is Tockett's goal. Like based on this setup here, like it seems like his goal is to keep your top two, like to keep your lines that are kind of playing together at 5-on-5, also as close as possible on the power play, right? Because you have your top line together, technically, plus Tippett, and you have your third line together, plus Zegras, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it seems like to me, right? Like these guys are playing 5-on-5, keep the guys 5-on-5 together because they're going to develop chemistry 5-on-5, so then there'll be more chemistry on the power play. And then they have Tippett on that first unit kind of as a shooter, maybe kind of drift around the net because I know they want him to get more involved with his body and physicality on the power play. And then for number two here, like it's the same thing, right? You have that third line of Kate's Brink Forsher that's hemming teams in all the time at 5-on-5. So naturally just makes sense that with an extra man, they're going to be able to do that even more on the power play. And then you put them with a guy like Zegras who can then dish the puck, and you hope that their ability to hem teams in, Zegras' ability to, create plays and scoring chances through his passing, you can get a lot of, pretty interesting scoring chances created with this unit. So I think it's just going to be now based on whatever unit's playing better. That's who's going to kind of get trotted out there. I think initially they'll defer to unit number one here, like to start next game is okay. You're getting the first chance, the first opportunity and all that. But if power play two starts to play better, I don't see them hesitating and playing them more, for example.
Yeah, and I think there's still room to change it up there, but
Yeah.
the power play is not. I mean, it's looked better visually than last season. I will say that,
They're moving the
but
puck better. They're
but
moving the
yeah,
puck around better, right?
100%. But they have given up shorthanded goals, and they have, especially like preseason included too, and they haven't. They outside of the one typical, they haven't scored on the power play. They haven't had a ton of opportunities on there. They still have an issue with taking penalties a little bit at points during the game. So, and again, that's affected Michkov minutes too and Zegras minutes. So we'll see how things evolve moving forward, but they do got to get this going. So I think it's worth trying. We'll see if it manifests in the next game. I suspect it will, but when Sean Couturier has a 4-point game, it kind of makes sense a little bit to elevate him,
That too,
on the
right?
power play also.
Yeah.
And he's been a monster on the faceoff. So if he wins the faceoff draw on the power play,
Yeah,
you know,
possession.
you
Yeah.
have possession immediately. You don't have to, fight to get in the zone as much. So we'll see. We'll see. That's why I was like, well, just move Tippett down and keep Zegras there. But maybe they want Tippett's big shot. He's also more physical. That's kind of what they're thinking. There's like a better balance of physicality now with swapping Zegras and Couturier. So we'll see how that manifests into if it becomes successful. So the penalty kill, we're not really sure what the top units are. Right now, the Flyers are ranked 18th in the league. They're pretty close to 16th in the league. They have 77.8%. 16th is 78.6%. So they were better up until last game, but again they've given up 2 goals on 11 opportunities. So I'm sorry,
Not
on
too bad.
9 opportunities.
Yeah, not too bad, but they've taken some,
Dumb penalties.
inopportune penalties at bad times.
Yeah.
And you're playing against powerhouse offensive teams like Carolina and Florida. So to be honest, 2 for 9 against Florida and Carolina is pretty good. Like
Yeah. No,
that's
look,
not bad at
I
all.
wouldn't say it's been a negative. They've had some shorthanded opportunities as well. Um, so it's not it's nothing to panic about. And right now, and this is a big reason why I wanted to show these lines, is really because of like, you look at the penalty kill. We don't know what the top forward units are. It really depends on who just played. But we
Yeah.
do know that they are Couturier, TK, Noah Cates, Forrester, and Dvorak Hathaway, which is very similar to last year, just Dvorak swapped with Ryan Paling. This is where I was hoping that Luchanko would see a little bit of time, maybe put, out there like instead of Hathaway or something
I think
for a
we might
shift or
see
two.
it. It might just take some time, right? Like
Yeah,
only the first few games. So I think they want to see how he plays at
but
five
he's
on five, and if he's not overwhelmed by that.
yeah. Well, he's been good defensively, especially last game against Florida. So that's where I'm kind of hoping they can pepper him a little bit on the PK.
Yeah,
Um,
more minutes for
yeah.
sure.
And we assume the defensive units are York, Sanheim, Sealer, Juleson, Yinning, Drysdale. And this is why I bring up the Andrae thing, because it's like, okay, yes, you still have, like, it's not that Andrae is like a net negative, but when you look at the penalty kill, it requires six defensemen. When you look at the power play, it's 2 to 3 defensemen. So when you think about roles, you really have like 2, 3 at most offensive roles for the team. But you need six guys who can push guys away from in front of the net, block shots, be big bodies, get in the way, handle guys physically down low. And that is not where Andrae is at his strongest.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's necessarily like much worse than a guy like Juleson at it, but Juleson is bigger and more physical. So this is why they struggle with the small defensive core, right? This is why we say you can really only have two guys on your team that are more, offensively oriented or at least purely offensively. And in this case, it's really one guy because York is a two-way guy and Drysdale is really the only offensive defenseman, like pure offensive defenseman in the lineup. Everybody else is either two-way or a defensive defenseman guy. I'm not saying that I wouldn't try Andrae in here, but I can always understand the rationale behind it just looking at the way the defense looks. So what are your thoughts on the PK?
Yeah, I think just like based on what they have is kind of what they're left with essentially in terms of their defenseman for the penalty kill. Like until Ristolainen comes back, um, like I don't love Juleson there on the penalty kill. Like I don't think he's the great penalty killer.
No.
In my opinion. Like I would put Andre there ahead
Or
of
even
him, but
Yinning?
or
Yeah.
Yinning,
Yeah.
but I think the physicality aspect, I think that's what they're really leaning on with Juleson. They think that that will help them on the penalty kill. I don't necessarily agree that that's needed. I think somebody who can retrieve a puck quicker, maybe get to the boards and get to the puck quicker than clear it is more important, which I think Andre could do more effectively than
And
Juleson.
and also
But
Andre is not like a pure offensive defenseman either. He is a physical guy.
yeah, exactly. But I think, they're going to give the veteran who's kind of been in the league longer an initial look at the beginning of the
Yeah.
season. And I think the way it's looked like for me, especially with like calling up Andre and playing him over Zamula, I think Tocchet is quick to kind of see when something's not working and realize that. So, like, for example, if the penalty kill is complete garbage, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, "Hey, these aren't working. Maybe let's try Andre
Let's
there
try it. Yeah.
because this isn't better than what, like, you know what I mean? It's not going to get any worse, right?"
Yeah.
So I think we might see that happen, but we'll have to see how it plays out with the penalty kill. For now, this is kind of the best they can roll out until they get Ristolainen back, because I think he's a big part of that penalty kill, and
Oh,
it's a success,
huge,
right?
huge. And I imagine like it'll be Sealer and Risto as
Yeah,
like the second unit,
the
and then
physical pair,
but then
exactly.
again, you're still left with like Yinning Drysdale as a bottom pairing. So it's like, where does Andre fit into all this? Maybe they end up bringing because Andre did play really well with Risto. Maybe it does end up becoming Risto, Andre, Sealer, Drysdale, York,
Maybe,
Sanheim.
yeah, that's more balanced, I would say.
So yeah, so we'll look to see. But you think about Tocchet called Risto a big mobile defenseman. They might also be like, well, we have Risto. He's got some offensive upside there. We don't need it as much. So everything's wait and see. But I will say this: looking at the Flyers lines and what's coming in next year, there is a move coming. I
Yeah, they're gonna
promise you
have
all.
to.
There's no way that you look at how jam packed this Flyers offense is already at the start of this season with guys successful at the minor leagues, right? We talk about Bump, Barkey, talk about Porter Martone. We have a bunch of college guys coming. We got Jack Nesbitt coming. they're going to have to make room, and
Well,
they're going to have to fill that void that they have at defense, which is another top pairing defender is, not a must, but it's ideal if you want to go on a long playoff run.
it's just a numbers game at this point, so I think it's pretty evident. Just looking at the lineup, even right here, right?
Yeah. They don't have a solidified top six where you're like, all six guys are good, really good. They don't
Yeah.
have that yet. So we'll see. And again, they always stated they want to build from the back end out. So I think that's their biggest focus. And you look at their strength and all their wingers, they will eventually try to package something to try to get another one of these defensemen. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, we're going to talk about the goaltending. So Dan Vladar looking really good, looking really sharp early on in the season. Um, the Flyers goaltending in general over these past three games has been a breath of fresh air. There definitely is something to letting the goaltender see the shot, right? And I think you as a goaltender will probably commensurate that. Um, and I feel I really like Vladar's personality. And I think he's had a couple shaky moments, but overall he's looked really good. I think Ersson looked good. He was not the reason we lost against Carolina. Um, and my thought is this: I know a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, they should make a decision already, or whatever." And is
Too early.
Vladar going to play next game? But I think they should just keep this going, like until one of them falls in their face. Get rotated again. Like I think Ersson. I don't know who's going to play, but I do think Ersson should play against the Jets, and I think they should keep rotating one another and just let them know. It's the consistency they'll have too. Be like, I know one guy's getting this game, I'm getting the next one. We're going to keep rotating until one of us falls on our face for a game, and then they can kind of make some decisions on who they think is like the 60-40 starter. But for now, I think they really should just bring Ayrton back in. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think both have looked really good. Both have been solid. I think the Carolina game, it's hard to like for Urson because he let in like 4 goals and got the loss, but I think he looked just as good as Vladar.
Yeah,
Just different circumstances, obviously. Because he made some really big saves. I think 39 shots against. It's no easy
it's
feat
nothing to
there, but
scoff at. Yeah.
yeah, but like I think both guys like I think rotating them is a benefit to both because you keep the competition kind of going, right? Like I think the internal competition drives competitiveness obviously and you're going to see that come to fruition on the ice because these guys ultimately want to play. They're professionals, right? So they're going to want to continue to put their best foot forward, give their best performances. But yeah, the main thing for me with the goalies is what you mentioned off the top, just like the team not being afraid to let the other team shoot, like not diving in front of every single thing to block it. Like I'll say as a goalie, like I loved getting early pucks. I love getting easy outside shots from the point or from the half wall that I know is going to be a routine save to feel the puck and just get into the game, right? So I think that's a big factor. Like I will not you know, hesitate to say that like that is a huge thing for these goalies. Like, not to say that you don't want your defenseman to block shots because it's really helpful, but a lot of the times those block shots end up being a detriment because first of all, you got to block if you're going to get in front of it. If it deflects off you and then is going in towards the net, it's probably going to be a goal. It's super hard to save a deflection shot as a goalie and readjust to where the puck's going after you think it's going to go somewhere else initially. So that's a huge thing. And then just getting pucks early, like settling into the game, like when you only get like 2 or 3 shots on net in a whole 20-minute period. And that's sometimes we saw that last season to start off with. The team was really good boxing out, really good in their own end, not letting a goalie see a shot. And then when that big chance does come, the goalie's not warmed up, not ready, easy goal again. So yeah, I'm liking it just because I think the goalies are getting pucks early and it's helping their confidence and helping them get situated in games so they can make those big saves and tougher saves. So far, like so good. I think we're seeing a complete 180 from the goaltenders at this point. Like if you look at where it was last season to kind of the performances so far, the goalies have kept them in it at points where Florida in certain points had controlled the play, had the better of the chances, And Vladar made some big saves to kind of keep the Flyers in. They were able to go back down and kind of get shifts in the Florida end on their own, in terms of offensive ability and offensive chances. And the same thing with Carolina, right? Like that first period, they got thrashed. Carolina outplayed them, a lot more shots on net, and Ersson kept them in it. So I think both goalies playing really well, and I think they'll just rotate essentially, like you said, right? Unless one really shits the bed, essentially going forward.
Yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. Keep both their confidence high. Just because you saw two good games from Vladar doesn't invalidate Ersson's potential. I think at the end of the day, you want two good goalies. And
Yeah, and that's needed in this NHL. You don't see goalies play 70 games anymore. So
yeah, and I believe Kolosov won first start of the game for the Phantoms as well in the
that's
first
awesome.
game, and then Bjarnason played the second game, where the team didn't play as well, unfortunately. But so they lost that game against Wilkes-Barre Scranton, I believe. Um, so we'll see what happens there. Sorry, just got a random message from WhatsApp, and I don't know what it is. Don't care. Okay. Let's take a look at the lineups. So this is where the lineup currently sits. We have Konechny, Couturier, Michkov, Dvorak, Zegras, Tippett, Forrester, Cates, Brink, Grebenkin, Luchanko, Hathaway. The extras, Deslauriers, Obels, and the defense. From what we understand, York is going back in with Sanheim. Sealer is going to be playing with Jamie Drysdale again. And it's most likely going to be Yinning and Juleson, as Andrae was sent back to the minors. And we suspect that Zamula will continue to sit for now. I do have Dan Vladar as the starter, but that's because he's played 2-1 games. But I do think, like I said earlier, that they probably will start Ersson against Hellebuck, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very tough game, but they have a tough game against the Wild afterwards on Saturday. So, they're all hard games for now, right? When it eases up is that they have the Kraken on Monday
Yeah,
the
it's a tough
20th.
schedule for them to start, but once they get through this gauntlet, it's a big confidence builder if they can come
Yeah,
out 500, right?
it's going to be
Um,
Kraken, Senators, Islanders, and Penguins after the Wild. So
Yeah,
a little
I
bit
mean,
easier.
I like these lines. I like the Couturier line, with Michkov and Konechny. Like I think we're starting to kind of see the remnants of last season. Obviously, the Brink line we talked about. I mean, Zegras, Tip, and Dvorak, even they've had some chances off the rush. They haven't looked bad. Like it's still so early. Like I think we need to see some of these lines stay together for more than a couple games to really
Yeah.
evaluate
What
what they are at this
Let me
point.
let me ask you this. Last year we had Michkov on the left and Konechny on the right. Now they have them both playing the off wing. Part of me wonders, even though Michkov likes to play the right wing, it's a little harder to get those passes off the boards when you're just coming into the zone. You're forced to be on your backhand
Yeah,
more, which Michkov obviously has got excellent playmaking skills, and so does Konechny. But I do wonder if there's value in swapping them around, and on the power play have Michkov play on his off wing, but on the penalty or on 5-on-5, maybe it's worth it to have him play the left wing, for I guess more
yeah.
reliability. What are your thoughts there?
Maybe I wouldn't mind. I think they have Michkov at right wing just do the defensive aspects. Like I think um in terms of like where he was playing last season, like I'm pretty sure he was on right wing a lot of the time. So it's just familiarity, right? Like
Yeah, but
he's already like aware of, okay, this is what I'm doing. You have to reteach him. I mean,
well, when
nonetheless, you're
he was playing left wing when he was playing on this line though under Tortorella.
oh, I thought he was on right wing.
No, he was on the left wing.
Okay,
Because remember that whole thing with TK doesn't like to play the left side, which I thought was like
oh
kind
yeah,
of
I don't
bullshit.
know. I don't know. I think for wing, like just in my experiences, like it's not really a big difference. Like
Right,
it's
I agree.
the handedness in terms of where you might receive
There's a
pucks,
there's a
but
benefit to both, right? It's
yeah.
the shot opportunity versus the passing in the zone. But that's the only thing I was thinking of. Like if he's still struggling
I
at five on
mean,
five a little bit,
maybe
yeah.
maybe it's something, but I think if they continue to struggle, they're just going to break the line up probably, to be
Yeah.
honest. So
Yeah, I was thinking maybe they will try Michkov with Zegras again and elevate Tippett
Maybe it's
type of thing.
possible.
I actually wanted to see Tippett on the right hand side because I'm like, we've been asking him to play on his off hand, for
Yeah.
the past like 2 seasons. And I'm like, maybe there's a benefit to putting him on his right wing and just let him be able to get into the zone, not on his backhand, to come in on his forehand. And, like maybe it'll be a little easier for him puck possession wise to not have his head facing the boards. You know what I mean? He can come
Yeah.
in looking at because he's very much an entry zone type of player, right? Like he likes to take the puck and enter the zone and just rip a shot off. So I was like, oh, maybe there's
Yeah.
benefit to that too.
It's
Same with
interesting.
TK likes to do that.
I don't know. I think they're going to keep these together for a couple of games just
Yeah, I
because they
think so
just
too.
won. And then we'll see what happens. Like if, let's say after the Minnesota game, like let's say for example they lost the next two, then maybe they'd make a change. But I think if they play well too against Winnipeg, like I think we're going to see these for a little bit here.
Yeah, and I think this lineup, I think the offensive lineup is formidable. The
Yeah, I don't
defense
mind it.
has serious holes, but especially without Risto, it
But we've done that, right?
yeah, but like the offense, like I, it's a pretty good group of players here. Like,
Yeah, I like it, and I think there's potential to see more guys get more ice time in certain spots. So that's
yeah,
what's intriguing. Like, you have one line going. Let's say Luchanko or Grebenkin are going. Like, you could play them more minutes, and I don't think you'd have an issue with
yeah.
that.
If somebody's off,
The
right?
same thing with the Cates Forster line. Like, let's say you have one of these top two lines is just falling flat on his face. You could play them like a first line, basically, because yeah. So I think that's what's interesting is
And
that you can play different lines depending on how they're performing and still get good results, perhaps. So
yeah, and I know there was that whole, now Tockett's kind of talking about how Zegras is like kind of half center now, splitting a little bit of time with Dvorak. And remember, I like brought this up. I was like, if they really want to play Michkov and Zegras together, like maybe they should play him with Sean Couturier. And I'm
that'd
not
be
saying I
interesting too.
want
Yeah.
them to take Zegras out of the middle, but if they do, part of me wonders like, can you do Dvorak, Tippett, and TK,
Yeah.
or maybe even elevate Luchanko into that spot, and have him play with Tippett and Konechny, and then have Zegras on the left hand side playing with Michkov, like looking for all those setups with, the big body Couturier in the middle. There's a lot of options here. That's all I'm saying.
I think we're gonna see a bunch of different stuff,
Yeah,
to be honest, throughout the
I think
year.
so
So
too. Though I do want them to continue with Zegras down the middle, like, and I
oh,
think
I think you
Talk had
have
said
to.
that. Yeah, like you have to.
At
He's
least
been better on
for
the
six
face-offs,
at
right?
least for 6 months and just kind of see like can he stick at his center, can he be effective, right?
Yeah,
So
like it's very important that he plays center, especially in the short term, before guys like Luchanko and Nesbitt are like ready to take that step, right? It's like
yeah.
even if Cates has been awesome and Couturier, your team is just a lot stronger with three guys down the middle who can produce points. And I like Dvorak, but he's not like a point producing machine. He's a
Yeah.
40-point guy, right? 20 goal, 20 assist guy. Like he's a good player, but he's not driving play, right? He's like a utility type of player. He's like an RJ Umberger type of guy. So Umberger in his prime, not in his downfall. So yeah, another topic do want to talk about real quick, and then we're just at 2 hours, so we'll end it on this topic. We'll do some prospects and stuff updates next time. There's not that many stats anyway right now, anyway, to really dig through. Not that much of trends though. Jack Murtagh scored a sick goal the other night, and I saw Buchgras is advertising that game is going to be on TV on ESPN, his next game. But there is a rumor going around right now that the Flyers have been talking to the Buffalo Sabres about a defenseman. Bowen Byram has been thrown out there. Rasmus Dahlin has been thrown out there. Owen Power has been thrown out there. Um, there's a lot of rumors, and they are struggling again. They're not the only team struggling. It's still very early, but they're also dealing with a
Yeah.
lot of injuries again. That team, they really need a new GM. Just change your fate, Jesus. But there are some opportunities there, and I think Bowen Byram is the biggest name just because there was all the contract issues. Having said that, though, Rasmus Dahlin said that he's frustrated with the scenario over there. He might want out of town by the end of the year. So we were talking about putting together packages. I did see Anthony DeMarco throw together like a Tippett, Bonk, Luchanko in a first. Look, I said this over and over again. Trades are about leverage. And when your lead guy says he wants out of town, you're not going to get exactly what you want for him most of the time. It is possible. Most of the time, you don't get exactly what you want. I don't know if the Flyers have that much of an appetite to trade 3 first-round picks and Owen Tippett. But
I mean, for Darlene, you do it.
yeah, I mean, like on the surface level, yes,
Well, you
because
need a
he's
top you
that
need a top
good.
pair D, and none of those
Right.
guys at this point are a first line player or
Sure.
a top pair D. So that's my
I'm not saying, I'm just saying,
way to
like,
look at it.
you've seen the way Briere negotiates. He
Yeah.
doesn't like to lose trades. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a loss, but
No, you get the best player in the deal. So
most of the time when we actually see these trades come through, people go like, how is it that this is all they got? So when I see that type of package together, I'm like, it's probably not going to be that,
no, it's a
but
lot,
it
but
will.
something like that. Yeah.
Something, yes, maybe one less of those prospects and swap out like Luchanko or Bonk for like a lesser prospect, right? Or a roster player of a lesser caliber or something like that. And I also threw out the name Grebenkin as a guy who could be traded. I'm not saying they're looking to trade him, but it's possible. You look at the
It's an
depth.
asset. Yeah.
Yeah, and you look at the depth at wing, you look at the fact that Bump is still down in the minors, Barkey's there, it's like Brink looks awesome, and Bobby Brink could be involved in this package too, especially with how good he looks. I'm not saying they want to trade anybody right now. But
No.
it is interesting. I think Bowen Byram makes the most sense. I can't see them wanting to move off of Owen Power, but I
Or
could see,
Darlene.
yeah, both of them. I would imagine they do not want to move either one of those guys. But I could see the Flyers loving Owen Power. I like as an organization, like
Yeah.
like not more than Darlene because Darlene is the obvious like, hey, this is a true number one defender. He's like top 8 in the league or whatever. But Owen Power fits that mold of guys that they're like,
The only thing with
that's a guy
power
we would have
that's
drafted.
the only thing that's with power that's intriguing is he hasn't like had a breakout or anything yet.
It reminds me of
So
Ekblad
maybe
in
a
a lot of
bit, but
ways.
yeah, I just think with him it might be cheaper to acquire him than a guy like Darlene. Like it not might
That's
be. It
yeah,
100% would be
yeah.
cheaper
Same
because he
with Byram.
hasn't yeah, because he hasn't gone into like that level yet. So it'll be interesting to kind of see like what happens. I mean, I think Buffalo, they're bound to make a trade with probably one of these defensemen at one point, just because a lot of the times, like you're seeing rumblings that, Byram feels blocked by Power and Power feels blocked by Byram and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if anybody hears my dog crying, he's trying to hide his bone, but
No,
yeah, either way. Uh, but yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the trade. I mean,
it's too early in my
yeah,
opinion.
it's too
Anyway.
early. It's 3 games in. Like, so I don't think they're going to trade anybody necessarily right now, but trade deadline's always when these things come to fruition, right?
Yeah, and it could be an off-season trade, like especially when you're moving a contract like Owen Tippett. He's got term. He makes 6 mil a year. That might be he might be more of an off-season type of guy. That if you are moving him, might be when teams are kind of reallocating and the cup or in the cap is going up. But I definitely think by this time next year, the Flyers are looking to be icing somewhat of a different roster, not like fire sale, anything like that, but they are looking to enhance probably from the back end out. And I do find it very interesting that, Eichel's off the board, Kaprizov's off the board, McDavid is off the board, but one guy we have not heard anything about is Quinn Hughes. That one
Yeah.
seems the most interesting to me as an upcoming
Well,
UFA because of
I
his relationship with
just,
Taki.
yeah, that his relationship with Tocchet, and I just think that Vancouver team seems to be on the downslide
Yeah,
compared to the last few seasons.
and
So you
and
might
it
just want to naturally move on, right?
I do think there's truth to him wanting to be closer to his brothers,
Yeah.
because they are a close knit group. And, like maybe you can't get into Jersey because they're pretty. I mean, they could also trade
They're
for him.
tight
Don't
to
get me
the
wrong.
cap. Yeah.
Yes, but they could trade for him, right? They have the assets to trade for him as
What
well.
I always
But
envisioned is
Philly's not far.
them eventually swapping Hamilton in some package to get Hughes eventually, but
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
see
it's
how that
it's
works.
absolutely possible. But that is a guy where I believe the Flyers are like, if he falls like to UFA, like
Oh yeah,
we're gonna go all in on this guy. Like
that's a major need for sure. I think
just like
defense in
if Darlene
general,
would, right?
yeah, in defense in general is a huge need. So I think it's pretty evident that's what they're going to
It
target next,
I
perhaps. So
I always think about when the Flyers added Chris Pronger, right? And we went from
yeah,
being like a pretty good team to a Stanley Cup contender. Like,
when you
and
add that first pair number one type defenseman, like it's going to make a lot of difference.
I think if you add a true top pairing defender to this team on top of Risto and York, I'm not talking about to like swap
Yeah,
out with Sanheim. This team is a legitimate playoff team overnight. Having said that, you could say that about a few teams around the league, right? That if you add a top pairing defender to that squad, they elevate. But look at what happened to Edmonton when they added Ekholm and they added all these defensemen. They were even with their high end talent of McDavid and Drysdale, they really did not become a fierce team until they improved their defense. I think the Flyers are in the same position where like they're
defense
becoming,
wins
yeah,
championships. So
because they're becoming more relevant. They have a deeper offense now. They have some talent. They have some dynamic game to them. But, can you stop your opposition on a regular basis? Can you get the puck out of your zone with ease? Like these are key elements to becoming a better team, and I think that's what the Flyers are looking to fix. So it is an interesting rumor with Buffalo because I do think there is a deal there that could happen, and it would be a heavy price for sure. But they are known to get their asses kicked in trades, so that is a
you want to
team
take
that.
advantage if you're Danny B. Yeah.
And we know it's not going to be a quick one. Like he's not rushing to make a trade. That is the
No,
one
yeah.
thing you should all be well aware of. He might, if he makes a trade, he's been working on it for months, and you just didn't know anything about it. All right, that's it for us. Anything you want to leave our audience with, my friend?
Just everybody check out flyersnittygritty.com. Tons of great content going up on the website. So we appreciate you checking out the site there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I love that you always bring up flyersindie.com because I always forget, which is ridiculous because it's the website I
It's all
co-founded.
good.
Thank you, Jamie, for everything you do. All right, yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Please remember to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notification. Get notified when we release these episodes. For the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and make sure to give us a rating and a follow if you can as well. That is the best way to support this show. And Vasili and I both humbly appreciate it if you could do that if you have not done that so far. Also, shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Again, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Also, Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. They will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company and make sure you get the best claim possible. Again, Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And shout out to SportsSpider.com. They are our partners. They aggregate sports content from all over the internet. Articles, videos, podcasts, everything is organized there. And our stuff from flyersnittygritty.com is pinned at the top. So make sure to check them out. Again, the link to them is both in the audio and video versions of this show. Thank you, Vasili, for being awesome as always, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We love you guys. And remember, always stay